friends, and welcome back to my homestead. Today I'm in the kitchen again because I am preparing for our New Year celebration. See, tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and in my culture it's a huge holiday. So what is better to serve for dessert than the old-fashioned, very popular cake that's called Napoleon cake, Napoleon, and it's not perfect at all. It's a little lumpy. You know why? Because I'm not a baker. This is a homemade cake, but it's going to be delicious. But let me tell you the ingredients we're going to require to make this cake. And we're going to start by having flour. I just sifted 6 cups of flour, all-purpose flour, but guess what? It may take a little more or a little less. Why? Because it depends on the humidity in the room and depends on the quality of the flour itself. Then we're going to need butter. Butter is still sitting in the freezer, and I'm going to need 3.5 of sticks of butter. If you're using metric system, we're going to need 400 grams of butter, okay? And it's very, very important that it stays icy cold, frozen, till the moment we start using it. Then we're going to need milk, and we're going to need 3/4 cup of milk. We're going to need half a cup of sour cream, 2 large eggs, but my eggs are not very large. Kind of smallish, so I may end up using 3. We'll see. Then I'm going to need just a good pinch of salt, maybe like half a teaspoon of salt. That's going to be my dough. Okay, so we have this really cold block of butter that I have stored in the freezer for a little while. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this flaky, buttery dough. And this is the very old-fashioned method, very low-tech method of doing this. So I'm going to be grating it on the cheese grater and constantly mixing it with flour. This has to be done very quickly so the warmth of your hands does not melt the butter. So your hands have to stay as cool as possible, and you got to work fast. So you know how I said we're gonna need 3.5 sticks of butter? Well, don't throw away the other half a stick because we're gonna need it for the cream. All right, so this cake is a very old-fashioned, and it's popular in Europe and here in the US, but everybody makes it differently. And every family argues that their recipe is the best and the most correct recipe, but yet every family has different tastes. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So see how they came out like little flakes? And I'm gonna be keep covering and mixing everything in flour. So there are 2 types of Napoleon cake. One is very fluffy and very crunchy. And that will require that the cream will be buttercream, okay? But then the other type of Napoleon cake is very soft, and all of the layers, and my cake, Lord willing, will have 12 layers, because the more the better. And hopefully all of my layers will be nicely saturated with cream, and in that case the cream has to be custard cream. And this custard cream is made very differently than buttercream. So yes, so see how this is beginning to melt? So I gotta work fast, people, I gotta work fast. All right, so all the butter has been mixed with flour, okay? And it's gonna be all nice and fluffy, just like this. I'm gonna mix it all up. While it's sitting here, I quickly need to make my wet ingredients. They're gonna go here. All right, let's see what I need. So I need to break, I have no time to wash my hands, so I gotta work fast. I'm going to break 2 eggs, mix them with a pinch of salt. I'm going to just whisk everything together. Look how yellow these eggs are from my chickens. Oh, good job, girls. All right, just mix them so the salt dissolves, and I'm going to be adding the milk. All right, and then I will add sour cream. and half a cup of all fat, full fat, nothing low fat here, peoples. This is a full-fledged New Year celebration here. We're not cutting any corners. And again, we're just going to mix everything together. I don't want anything to be in lumps. Okay, so that is done. Okay, and now I'm going to create a little well right here in the middle of the dough, and I'm going to add my wet ingredients. All right, and now I'm going to make dough by mixing everything. Again, try to work fast because we don't want this butter to melt, because here's the thing, because this butter is in chunks just like it is now, when the dough bakes, we want it to be very, very fluffy and have a lot of air pockets, because that's the beauty of this Napoleon dough that we're making. So this dough is very difficult. It does not want to come together. Sometimes you have to put little effort into it. Okay, so this dough is finally looking like a dough. All right, so I'm just gonna finish it here on the table. So I'm gonna knead this together for a couple of minutes, just so it becomes more elastic and it will be easier to roll it out. Because if you don't knead this dough at all, it will be very difficult to roll out. Okay, so I think it's done. As dough, it's done. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna sort of roll it out in a sausage-like formation. Okay, and I'm gonna cut this into 12 little portions, because I am hoping to make 12 layers. But I'm just gonna tell you something right now. It is rarely that I make 12 layers. One of them somehow breaks. Okay, so I need a knife, and I'm gonna cut this into 12 pieces. All right. And the reason why I'm doing this now, because I'm gonna put them in the fridge to rest for hopefully 4 hours. So because this dough really needs to be cooled off, nice and chilled, nice and rested. And I'm just gonna create little portions, and I'm gonna lay them all down on a floured plate so nothing sticks. So I'm gonna cover them up and put them in the fridge to rest for next 4 hours. Okay, friends, so while the dough is chilling, it's time to have a cup of coffee or tea. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's time to make the filling. What's going to be between the layers, the cream. So my cream is going to be custard-based cream, okay? There will be some butter in it, but again, it's not the buttercream. So let me show you the steps we need. So first of all, I have this the milk, 2 cups of milk on a stove warming up. And it doesn't have to be boiled milk, just hot milk, okay? And in the meanwhile, as the milk is warming up, I need to beat the eggs with some sugar, all right? So I have 3 eggs here. So I'm just gonna beat them together. I need 3 eggs. I need 1.5 cups of sugar. And again, it sounds like a lot, but at the same time, I want you to remember that there is no sugar in the dough at all. We have to make this a little bit sweeter. And Napoleon is not very sweet cake at all. So I'm just gonna beat this together for a little bit. And again, this is not to make them fluffy. This is just to melt sugar and the eggs together. I'm gonna need 1/2 cup of cornstarch. Okay, 1/2 cup of cornstarch. I'm gonna need about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. and that I will add a little bit later. And we're going to finish everything off with a half a stick of butter that was left over from the dough. Remember how we had that extra? So I cut them up into small chunks, and we're gonna use that later. All right, so I created this almost like a slurry type of thing. All right, so I'm gonna take the hot milk. I'm gonna take the hot milk and I'm gonna add just a little bit because we don't want scrambled eggs, remember? So I'm just gonna be adding a little bit at a time, mixing everything together so the egg mixture will become a little warmer without becoming scrambled eggs. A little bit more. A little bit more. All right, I think at this point I'm going to be returning everything back into the pot where I was warming up the milk. Okay, I'm going to return everything back to the stove, and I'm going to cook this continuously stirring. And I'm going to put this on the lower heat. Yeah, on a very gentle heat. And this is the time where you don't leave the kitchen. As a matter of fact, you don't walk away from the stove. This requires some patience and dedication because I've got to stand here and continuously stir this bad boy because I don't want anything to stick to the bottom, and it's going to start getting thick pretty quickly. All right, it's getting thicker. I'm going to turn off the heat. I'm going to keep stirring this. I'm going to stir everything. All right, and I'm going to take off the heat. I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla now. I'm running low here on my vanilla. It's been a long baking season this year. Okay, and I'm going to add the butter because the butter can be added now. Okay, and I'm gonna mixing that in. All right, so everything seems to be melted, and now I have to put this cream into a cool place to cool off completely. So this is a custard cream. So, but before I put it somewhere to cool off, because we obviously cannot use it hot, I'm gonna be layering with a little bit of plastic right on the bottom without burning myself. Okay, and I'm gonna let this completely cool off. So while okay friends, so now it's time to roll out this dough and make thin crust for Napoleon cake. So I have this form that I think I'm gonna use to measure out my cake because I'm gonna use this as my base for the cake, and I think it will fit. Also, I do know that when I roll out the dough and measure out the form of the cake that I want, I also know that when it bakes, it usually shrinks. So I am gonna just dust a little flour on the bottom. Oh, the stove is ready for me. All right, so let me start rolling this dough out. This dough has to be very thin. Very thin. So, and thank God this dough rested enough. So now I can roll it out. And also, I remember my mama saying something, and I know for a fact that she's right. She was right. She said that if you lift up the dough as you're working with it, it will not shrink as much as if you did not lift it up. Now, I don't know why. I have no idea the reasoning for that. No idea. But I will do what she told me. So I'm going to keep lifting it up. All right. Lift it up. See how it likes to shrink back after I lift it? All right, so hopefully it's enough. Okay, well, close enough. So now I'm just gonna take a knife and I'm gonna run the edges. And I'm gonna cut out this shape. All right. So let me see my circle. Yeah, it's not exactly straight here, but I'll promise to be better on the next one. So I'm gonna layer the dough on my baking sheet. But guess what? I'm not throwing away these little pieces. I'm also gonna bake them as well, because I'm gonna be needing them later and you'll see why. All right, so I'm gonna layer them here so they can bake. Now on the base, okay, as it's sitting here, either you can use a sharp knife to make holes everywhere, or you can use a fork. And that is actually a very good job for the little kids to help you with in the kitchen, because you want them to be part of the celebration and preparation as well, because this will help my crust to stay straight and not shrink up too much. So now it's ready to go in the oven. The oven is warmed up to 350, and this is going to bake very fast. So because every oven is different, and you really need to pay attention to your own oven, but I'm going to put this in the oven right now at 350 for about 6-7 minutes, and I'm going to keep an eye on it because I know they cook pretty fast. Okay. All right, so let's check on the first one that I put in. It's been baking for 8 minutes. Honestly, I could leave it for another minute, but I don't want to burn it because they are so thin and fluffy. So let's take a look. All right. I actually can handle them. Oh, maybe not. All right, so it's done. And I'm just gonna take a plate to collect these little guys as well. I don't think that was the best choice. All right. Okay, friends. So the cream that's going to be for layering has cooled off. Our layers are ready, and thank God none of them I broke. So I have 12 of them, each per a month of the year. And look at this beautiful pile. Isn't that something? And we didn't throw them away. Why? Because we're gonna need them. So now what I need to do is I just need to fluff this up and whip up this cream to make it nice and fluffy. I'm not gonna add any more butter because I don't want this to be a buttercream. All right, so the cream got much fluffier. So now I need to assemble this cake. Okay, so my cream is ready. Let's assemble this bad boy, and I'm just gonna put a little dab on the bottom and the middle, so my what we call in Russian korji, they don't swim around, and it's so nice and fluffy and so airy. Oh my goodness! So we're gonna try to have them match in between. So now I'm gonna put a layer of cream on each piece. I'm gonna try to distribute this nice and even. I have to say this cream came out a little too thick than I want it to be, and usually it comes out a little thinner. So I'm not sure if I miscalculated something or mismeasured, but it should be a little thinner. You don't want it to be too runny because it will be a big fat mess. Everything will be running, but just distribute everything nice and nice. Okay, and I'm gonna keep layering them all on top. And again, friends, if it's slightly uneven, it's okay. Guys, remember, this is homemade cake. It's not supposed to be perfect. Can you hear that? Crunch, crunch. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So how much? It's probably about 2 tablespoons per layer. Okay, because you rather have something extra than not enough. Let's put it that way. So if there's like any little air pockets, it's okay that they break right now, but you don't have to break them. Now, all right, as I told you guys in the beginning, every family has their own recipe, okay? Every single family. And some families prefer that their Napoleon cake stays crunchy. I prefer my cake to be well saturated and to be nice and soft, and that it would melt in your mouth. So what I'm going to do is that after I put this cream on and I finish decorating, I will let it sit in a cool place, not very cold place. No, 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 not refrigerator, not yet. I'm gonna let this sit in a cool corner of my kitchen for a few hours so that this cream begins to work and absorb into the layers in between, okay? So this crunchy little wafer pieces become nice and soft, okay? And then after, when I say few hours, probably six hours or so, 4 to 6 hours. And then after that, I will put it in the refrigerator overnight to set, so it'll be nice and easy to slice it. Okay, so we are at our last layer, and the top I'm also going to be putting the cream on, and what's left over I'm going to spreading that onto the sides, and if something leaked out from the sides, I'm going to be attaching it, kind of swirling it around. Okay, now for the last step, do you remember all those pieces, guys? Remember all those pieces? All right, so now we need to break them and make a crumble out of it. So get all your new old year frustrations out. So remember how the dough did not have any sugar and only cream has sugar? Well, okay, so I'm gonna remedy this a little bit by adding a little bit of my old trusted powdered sugar. How much? I have no idea. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit. So probably what, a tablespoon? Maybe? I don't know. I did not measure. And I'm just gonna mix everything up. Now I'm gonna be covering this entire cake on all of the sides with this crumble. Okay, on each side, I'm gonna try to put a crumble in this bad boy. And then I'm going to be putting this on the sides and try to attach them to the sides as well. And see, this is how you're going to cover all of those imperfections. Now, if you like, and if you had any cream left, you can always decorate at the top, okay? But I'm just going to put a little bit of crumble at the top. Okay, friends, I hope you take the chance to cook those old-fashioned family recipes. Sit around the table, give your loved ones a hug, say goodbye to 2020, welcome 2021. So stay encouraged and try something new.